Go inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Gary Harris.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome into another edition of Tider Insider Television presented by Buffalo Rock, fine bottlers of Pepsi Cola, and that's exactly what we're going to enjoy tonight. Ice cold, just took them out of the fridge.
I'm glad yours is ice cold. Did you not put mine in the refrigerator?
Yeah, it's in the refrigerator.
Okay.
Yeah. Next to Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm Gary Harris, and from Pepsi, we go to Alabama football. A rather serious note, although he's now technically a former Alabama football player. Last Thursday, Alabama's Dre Kirkpatrick announced he would leave early for the NFL. Today, the former Tide quarterback had a run-in with the law, which is never good. Kirkpatrick was arrested early this morning, just shortly after midnight in Bradenton, Florida, where he was scheduled to begin training for the NFL Combine. A Manatee County, Florida Sheriff's Department spokesperson said Kirkpatrick was arrested for marijuana possession. Kirkpatrick, who announced, as we said at a press conference last week, that he would leave school early to enter the NFL draft, was charged with possessing less than 20 grams of cannabis and released on bond. Another former Crimson Tide player, Chris Rogers, was driving the vehicle the wrong way up a street when the two were pulled over. Kirkpatrick was a passenger in the vehicle. Rogers was charged and released on the same charges. Kirkpatrick was named a second-team All-American this year by the Associated Press. He was also projected to be a first-round draft choice and high first-round draft choice, Rodney, and certainly now, because the NFL values what type of judgment a player makes, and drugs, of course, obviously marijuana is frowned upon. You see number 21 here in action from this past season, but this is going to affect his draft status, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and how much remains to be seen. Gary, I know you were talking beforehand that it may sometimes affect a guy at 20 spots.
Yeah, 15, 20 spots.
That's a lot of money.
Well, what they frown on, obviously, you know, let's be honest. A lot of football players, professional and college, it's been proven, smoke marijuana. You don't want that to be the case, but it happens. But I think in this case, the judgment involved. You're in Florida to train for the NFL Combine, to try to get your draft stock as high as you can, and to use that type of judgment. I think a lot of NFL teams are going to say, you know what, that's not what we're looking for a first-round draft pick. So I do think he's going to fall. In some mock drafts, he was listed as high 6th overall, and he's got the skills. Right, the measurables are there, 6'2", 6'3", around 190 or so. As you look at from this video, he's physical enough to play the run. He's got great ball coverage skills. The physical ability is there, but I do think there's some other things that have happened while he played at Alabama that will draw into question his decision-making, and we'll just have to see what happens with it. It's disappointing. It's a disappointing decision that he made, and Chris Rogers as well.
Well, you summed it up, Gary, and you know, he'll pay the price.
Yes, he will, but has the physical skills, so you hope that a team will get him in the interview process. He'll be able to explain his thinking, and maybe he won't fall too much, but we shall see. Well, Kirkpatrick wasn't the only Tide player who announced he was leaving early last week. In addition, junior running back Trent Richardson and redshirt junior linebacker Dante Hightower announced they're leaving the capstone for the bright lights of the NFL as well. Nick Saban can't be any happier for the three players moving on to the NFL.
They've been great ambassadors, great representatives for the University of Alabama as people, as students, and as football players. And I know they'll continue to be the same kind of ambassadors for the university in everything that they do in the future. And I can't tell you how much we love them and how much we appreciate all that they've done to help this organization be successful.
Obviously, Kirkpatrick needs to start working again on being a good ambassador. But Trent Richardson, no doubt, in terms of his football ability and in terms of the way he's matured as a young man, his skill level, his strength, his quickness, his ability to cut back, again, the intangibles he brings off the field. I mean, what an outstanding football player.
Let me tell you what I think about Trent Richardson. You mentioned all the physical things and some of the intangibles, but I think one of the greatest opportunities that he had, not only playing for Nick Saban here in this offense, but was the opportunity to play with Mark Ingram, because Mark Ingram had those intangibles that few players have. I mean, his desire to succeed was probably as great as any player that I can remember coming through here. And I know there's been a lot of players with a lot of great desire, but none greater, in my opinion, than Mark Ingram. And I think the opportunity to be somewhat tutored or mentored by Mark Ingram, under Ingram, kind of lit that fire in Trent Richardson, and hopefully I think, you know, that passes on to Eddie Lacy.
Yeah, we've talked about it often. Players policing other players and teaching them, it's even more valuable than what the coaches can do. You mentioned Eddie Lacy. Going forward next year without Trent, he figures to be the key guy. The running game will look different, but no doubt about that. But at the same time, it still should be very effective.
Great player, no doubt about it. I think he's got the opportunity to become a great player. Has all those skills, and when you look at him, I thought he matured a lot, Gary, from last season to this season. So, again, next year is going to be his opportunity to be the guy. And, you know, you obviously have Joston Fowler back there as well. D. Hart's a guy that could be a situational player depending and, you know, has a lot of talent. And of course, they have the freshman that's already here, T.J. Yeldon, that is going to be a magnificent talent as well. So, again, I think though you lost Ingram, you lose Richardson this year, Alabama still has, you know, some backs that are very, very talented.
Now to Dante Hightower. He was ticketed to be a 3-year player anyway, but in 2009 blew out that knee against Arkansas, made a decision to come back. You know, 2010 was a good year for him, but he still wasn't 100%. Came back for 2011, and it really paid off. He had a phenomenal season.
Dramatically better. You know, you just watched him. Gary seemed to play with a lot more confidence. He moved a lot better. He looked like the Dante Hightower that really we saw, what, in 2008, early 2009, before his injury. I mean, he was just, like you said, dramatically better. He took on a leadership role that a lot of people were looking to see, you know, kind of like that Rolando role that he took a couple of years ago. And, you know, again, he just really matured.
And he could sneak into that late first round, certainly early second round at the latest. Well, other than players leaving for the NFL, the other big story concerning Alabama football this week has been the comings and goings of assistant coaches. And while there's still been no official confirmation from the university, it appears that former NFL quarterback Doug Nussmeier will be the Crimson Tide's new offensive coordinator. Reports even say Nussmeier has agreed to a contract that will pay him approximately $600,000 annually. Nussmeier served the last 3 seasons as offensive coordinator at the University of Washington, and prior to that, he replaced Jim McElwain, his old buddy, as the OC at Fresno State. When McElwain took the Alabama job, they coached together at Michigan State. Nussmeier played quarterback at Idaho for John L. Smith. He's back at Idaho, by the way. 5 seasons in the NFL as a backup. His friendship with McElwain certainly gave him some insight into this Alabama job. And Rodney seems to be a good fit. Hasn't gotten here yet, but you know, is going to run an offense very similar to what Jim McElwain.
Yep, and you know, Pat Hill, the head coach at Fresno State that had Jim McElwain and then hired Doug Nussmeier, said they're very similar. And that, you know, it'll be good for Alabama, the transition, because they really won't miss a beat because of those similarities. And, you know, one other thing, Gary, the fact that he was a quarterback, he played in the NFL, I think, 8 years. I mean, when you've played and you've had that experience, it allows you to relate to that position a little bit better, in my opinion.
And Lance Thompson is coming back to Alabama again. Thompson, who coached at Tennessee the last 3 years, will take over the vacancy created when outside linebackers coach Sal Sunseri left, ironically, to become the defensive coordinator at Tennessee. Now, this will be Thompson's 3rd tenure in Tuscaloosa. He was originally a UA assistant under Mike DeBose. Then he was one of the first assistants that Nick Saban hired in 2007. He surprisingly left following 2008 to join Lane Kiffin's staff at Tennessee, so he's missed out on the national championships at Alabama. Still, though, he's a great recruiter, and because he's so familiar with Saban and the program, he's already, even though it's officially not been announced, you know, in here hitting the ground running with recruiting.
Yep, I think Lance probably regretted leaving shortly after he got to Knoxville, to be quite honest with you, Gary. I know he's thrilled to be back. There's little question about that. And you mentioned his recruiting prowess. I mean, the guy is certainly one of the best in the country. There's no doubt about it, especially in this area of the country. I mean, he really relates well to all prospects, does a great job, and you know, he's going to be a terror on the recruiting trail.
All right, still to come on TITV, we'll discuss the man Thompson is replacing, Sal Sunseri, more on why he decided to leave the Tide and what Nick Saban and his son Vinny Sunseri have to say about Sal's move. Also ahead, A.J. McCarron underwent surgery last week for an injury that he says occurred during the Arkansas game. More on that story as well, plus we'll take your phone calls and get to your emails and have all that and more coming up on Tider Insider TV. There's the number to get in touch with us. You're watching the show that takes you inside the Tide, the one, the only, Crimson Tide Inside Tider Insider TV program. Stay with us. Welcome back to Tider Insider Television. Phone calls and emails still to come. But first, the Alabama men's basketball team saw its 5-game winning streak come to an end on Saturday in Starkville. Bama lost to Mississippi State 56-52. The Tide led with about 3 minutes to go, but couldn't close out the game. DeBost hit 3 critical three-pointers late in that game to give the Bulldogs the lift they needed. They win it by 4. And today, Rodney, Anthony Grant told the media at his press conference that if you look at this game, they lost it for the same reasons they lost to Georgetown, they lost to Dayton, and they lost to Kansas State. And I think he's probably laid it down pretty hard to his team. He basically said today in the press conference, players have to make up their mind. You know, does the team come first? Does individual numbers come first? And when it comes to crunch time, they got to be a little bit tougher. And this was a game Saturday. I saw the game. Alabama was in position to win it, and they just didn't make the plays. And I think Coach Grant's growing a little bit frustrated with that. And it'll be interesting to see what happens on Thursday night against a good Vanderbilt team here at home.
Well, my question would be, I didn't see the game, and what does he mean by worried about individual numbers?
I think he feels like some guys maybe putting self in front of team. And that was the way I took it from what he had to say today. And it's time now to make a decision, as he said, on what kind of team do you want to be. Now is the time. They're 2-1 in the SEC. They've only got 4 losses overall, but by no means is anything guaranteed. And if this team is going to reach its goals, they're going to have to get a little tougher, and they're going to have to put team in front of individual success. And that's why I said with Vanderbilt and Kentucky coming up back-to-back, it's going to be interesting to see if they take those words to heart. We'll find out starting on Thursday night. Well, still to come, more on the departure of Alabama linebacker coach Sal Sunseri. Plus, quarterback A.J. McCarron undergoes surgery. How tough is this kid? He went through the whole season practically. Needed it, waited until after the year. Plus, we'll take your phone calls and emails, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Or you can email us at TITV@WVUATV.com. We'll be back with more right after this. Welcome back. As we mentioned earlier in the show, Alabama assistant Sal Sunseri left to become the defensive coordinator at Tennessee. I guess you could call Tennessee Tuscaloosa North now. They're hiring everybody from Alabama. Sunseri reported receiving a 3-year, $2.4 million guaranteed contract. Very rare for an assistant to get that kind of deal, but I guess that's what it took to get him up there. Of course, all kinds of connections. Dave Hart's the AD there. A couple of others in the athletics department worked at Alabama. Of course, Derek Dooley coached for Nick Saban. With the Dolphins and with LSU. And, you know, Sal Sunseri, I think, very happy here at Alabama. But, Rodney, you can't blame him. A big pay raise and also an opportunity to coordinate a defense. Here's what Saban had to say. Sal is an outstanding coach and really did an excellent job with each and every responsibility he had while he was here at the University of Alabama. Although we hate to see Sal go, we understand this is an opportunity for him to grow in this profession and take on the role of defensive coordinator. All right. Rodney, let's talk about Sal leaving. I mean, he was an excellent outside linebackers coach. We watched him on the practice field, attention to detail. I mean, running a drill, he would stop it over and over and over and over again before he'd let the guy go on until he ran it if he wasn't running it right. That's how hard he was on the players, and he was an excellent recruiter as well. Yeah,
he was a great recruiter, Gary, and again, he related well to the players, and as you mentioned, he was an excellent coach, and, you know, like you said, he's certainly going to be missed in a lot of ways. And, you know, it's going to be, we assume, Lance Thompson, so nothing official as you mentioned. But, you know, Lance is excellent too. So I think when you look at that, as far as recruiting goes, you probably really don't lose much.
What makes this really interesting is that Sal's son, Vinny, is an outstanding freshman on the Crimson Tide football team. Safety and special teams stand out. This is what Vinny had to say. He went to Northridge High School after the Sunseris moved to Tuscaloosa. I love my dad, and this is a great opportunity, and I'm really happy for him. In terms of my status, the University of Alabama is the place for me, and that is what my heart and my mind tells me. This is my home, and there's no place else I'd rather be. I'll root for him every day of the year, except for the third Saturday in October. So it's clear that Vinny Sunseri, a happy member of the national champion Alabama Crimson Tide. Meanwhile, Alabama quarterback A.J. McCarron announced on his Facebook page last week that he underwent a successful surgery on Friday. McCarron says his right shoulder had been injured since the Arkansas game, but he didn't go into the nature of the injury. Rodney, this is one of those things, obviously, like Josh Chapman played with a knee and got surgery after the season. Sometimes you have an injury that you can play with, you can deal with the pain, and you go ahead and do that rather than miss time during the season. And A.J. was tough enough to do that.
And you would really never have known it.
No, you wouldn't. And he played well, and now he'll be healed up and I assume ready to go in time for the spring. So A.J. McCarron showing that he's not only a good leader on the field, he's a tough quarterback as well. All right, let's go to the phones and talk with John. He's first up tonight over in Bessemer. John, what's going on?
Gary, what's going on, man?
Hey, man.
Hey, man, I heard we got a new coordinator.
Yeah, Doug,
Is he gonna be better than the other guy? What?
well, as we talked about earlier, Doug Nussmeier and Jim McElwain, good friends. Their coaching career kind of parallels each other. They coached together at Michigan State, and then Nussmeier followed McElwain as offensive coordinator at Fresno State when McElwain left to come to Alabama. So, yeah, I think he'll be a good choice. I think he'll fit in well. And as we said, I think Alabama has a template for what they want to do offensively, and I don't see it changing much under Doug Nussmeier.
Yep, I agree with everything you said, but let me say this, John. Jim McElwain was 48-6 in his tenure, 2 national championships.
That'll be hard to top.
It'll be hard to top that one. But, you know, again, he is a outstanding young offensive coordinator.
All right, let's talk to Joseph in Tuscaloosa. Joseph, what's going on?
Hey, Gary Rodney, what's happening with you?
Hey.
Somebody asked, now that we don't won the national championship for the 2011 season, is there a chance the tickets are probably going to be a little bit more expensive this upcoming football season?
I don't know. Joseph, you know, the ticket prices are set, and I don't know how they go about doing that. I wouldn't assume that they would be any more expensive just because of winning the national championship. Certainly, every year it gets more and more expensive to run an athletics department in a football program, so there might be a raise in the tickets, but, you know, it wouldn't be that substantial, I wouldn't think. Again, I don't know.
Hadn't heard.
Yeah, just have to wait and see. All right, let's go to Coleman and talk to Johnny. Johnny, what's going on?
Good evening. How are each of you?
Hey, doing well.
Good. I just want to get your 2 inputs. How much do you think the image of Dre Kirkpatrick will be affected by this, and should he be allowed to be a part of the national championship celebration on Saturday?
Well, as we said, it's going to affect his draft status, you know, to some degree. And as far as how it affects Alabama, I don't really think it affects Alabama at all. You never want to see one of your players in this situation. But, yeah, I would think if he comes back, if he was scheduled to come back and be back, he's still, you know, those things happen. He's not the first football player in college that's been arrested for marijuana possession. Won't be the last. Again, I don't know what his plans are. I don't know what the university's plans are, but I'm sure they wouldn't tell him that he couldn't be a part of it. That's
yeah, I mean, you know, he contributed here greatly for 3 years, part of 2 national championships. Again, I understand he made a mistake, but, you know, let's not totally condemn the guy. Let's encourage him. He is, after all, we say we're the Alabama family, or the Alabama people say that. You know, I think that, you know, what he did, we ought to look at it as a mistake and certainly encourage him. All
right, let's go back to the phones, over to Hoover. Or email, I'm sorry. Let's start with Blake from Hoover in terms of an email. What's the status of linebackers Dante Patrick and Jonathan Atchison? A couple of guys that were much ballyhooed out of high school. Patrick from Northeast Alabama, Atchison from Atlanta. Neither one's received much playing time. But again, the example that Jarrell Harris has set could be an example for any young linebacker. If you're just willing to hang in, you may get your opportunity. What's up with them?
Well, we'll see. You know, again, we talk about how Nick Saban's recruiting, and, you know, sometimes guys develop a little bit later. And I don't think he ever gives up on a player, but there's certainly going to be a lot of competition. As you know, Gary, this recruiting class, this particular recruiting class, is going to have a lot of outstanding linebackers in it.
Yeah, but they're talented, and you never know. Sometimes you just have to be patient and you get your chance. More phone calls and emails when we continue here on Tider Insider TV. All right, welcome back to Tider Insider TV. Rodney Orr, Gary Harris, and back to your phone calls and emails. And we've got an email from Sharon in Hueytown. What's the status of C.J. Mosley? A dislocated hip, we're told, in that BCS championship game. Rodney, what's the latest?
Gary, you know, again, I haven't heard anything official, but I think, you know, there's a good chance that we'll see him go through spring practice, at least to some extent. You know, maybe limited, who knows, but, you know, it could have been a lot worse.
I tell you lose a guy like Dante Hightower, and a lot of programs would go, there's no way to replace him, but you're sitting here with Nico Johnson and C.J. Mosley. Even though Dante's a great player, I don't expect much of a drop-off.
Yeah, and what about Trey DePriest?
Yeah, and DePriest coming on.
He really looked good in the championship game.
And a lot of other young linebackers on the team, too. Okay, let's talk to James in Tuscaloosa. James, go ahead.
How you doing, Rodney? How you doing, Gary?
Hey, doing well, James.
Good, good. I'm calling about the officiating in the SEC on road games.
Right.
I've never seen anything as bad in my life before as officiating. I mean, over the backs they were doing at Mississippi State, the hell ball, the jump ball that they didn't call. I mean, like I was telling a guy, Stevie Wonder can call a better game than these guys.
Well, James, I'll tell you this. Those officials are judged every game. The conference looks at those tapes. But I'm not going to disagree with you. I mean, you hear coaches say all the time, we got to try to steal one on the road. It's so tough to win on the road. I agree. I mean, I think for some reason the home team, if you go through each game, I guarantee you the home team shoots more free throws than the visiting team. And it's not supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be you know, where you're playing the game has nothing to do with it. But all I can tell you is these officials are graded game to game, and they're supposed to call it right down the middle regardless of what the venue is and where the game's played and who's playing. And that's about all I can tell you. But in basketball, it's so difficult because there's a foul every possession. You just have to kind of, during the course of the game, figure out what you're going to call and what you're not going to call. So it's tough, but yeah, I know you're probably referencing that Mississippi State game on Saturday against Alabama, and that big kid from Mississippi State just got wherever he wanted to get on the floor and had his way. But that's what you got to overcome when you're on the road. All right, we're going to take a timeout. We'll be back with a perfect performance by an Alabama gymnast. We'll have the story when Tider Insider TV begins. And last but certainly not least, Alabama gymnast Geraldine Stack Eaton did something Friday night that had not been done since 2005 when my Alabama Gymnastics broadcast partner Ashley Miles did it. Stack Eaton was perfect, not exaggerating. She scored a perfect 10 on the vault in her first attempt of the season. It was the first time a Tide gymnast scored a 10 on any event since Miles did it on both the vault and the floor during the NCAA 2005 championships. Stack Eaton was named the SEC Gymnast of the Week, as you would expect. Alabama opened with a season opening victory over their arch rival, the Georgia Gym Dogs. All right, it is time for dinner. Tonight, we're headed over to the Pottery Grill in Northport, right there at the intersection of Highway 82 and 69. Come out and join us for dinner if you'd like. And don't forget, if you missed any of tonight's show, you can find it at WVUATV.com. We'll have it posted later on tonight. Thanks for watching. For Rodney Orr and our entire TITV staff and crew, I'm Gary Harris. We'll see you next week.